In this podcast episode, Tucker Carlson and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene explore the core ideological foundations of the MAGA movement and the internal struggle within Washington, D.C. that threatens to undermine these principles. The discussion grounds itself in the context of political betrayal, reflecting on George Orwell's Animal Farm allegory to illustrate how revolutionary movements can devolve into the very entities they once opposed. MAGA, as articulated by Donald Trump over the last decade, represents a coalition built on 5 enduring pillars, principles that Tucker and Greene assert are being systematically attacked and co-opted by establishment insiders and special interests within both major parties. At the heart of the dialogue is an articulation of the 5 essential pillars that define MAGA's ethos, elucidated by Tucker and validated through Greene's loyal support. The first and foremost is the notion of America First, a foreign policy framework that insists the U.S. government must prioritize the interests and security of American citizens above all others. This principle runs counter to the historically globalist tendencies of American political elites, who often pursue foreign agendas disconnected from the needs of their own electorate. Greene echoes this urgency, emphasizing that MAGA is fundamentally about reclaiming sovereignty and accountability, specifically calling out Republican leaders for abandoning these values. The second pillar stresses the vital necessity of secure borders. Controlling immigration through clear, enforceable borders is presented not only as a practical policy, but as an existential requirement for national identity and legal order. Greene passionately argues that Americans have the moral and legal right to determine who resides in their country, comparing this right to a homeowner's ability to choose their guests, highlighting the failure of Washington politicians to enforce border security. The movement's third pillar vehemently opposes pointless wars. Historical U.S. military engagements such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and other conflicts are denounced as strategic failures that have cost American lives and treasure without delivering genuine security benefits. Tucker and Greene underscore Trump's unique stance against endless foreign wars and wasted military expenditures, positioning it as a core reason for his electoral success and a sentiment broadly shared by his base. Fourth, the conversation targets globalization and its devastating economic effects on the American working class. Rather than embracing financialization and outsourcing, MAGA's economic vision seeks to bring back real jobs, restore manufacturing, and rebuild a viable domestic industrial base. Greene recounts personal stories and observations to illustrate the economic hollowing of America, tracing it to decades of policy choices that favored global finance over local livelihoods. Finally, the fifth pillar champions free speech as a foundational American right, under attack by what they identify as woke culture and cancel culture. Trump's role as a defender of open discourse is praised for broadening political dialogue and challenging censorship. Greene highlights the increasing suppression of dissenting views, framing it as an authoritarian effort to silence opposition, especially within conservative circles. Together, Tucker and Greene portray these pillars not as radical demands, but as moderate, traditional American values that have been neglected or deliberately undermined by the political establishment. Marjorie Taylor Greene exposes the deep and ongoing conflict between the MAGA movement's grassroots supporters and the entrenched Republican establishment. She recounts her personal experience arriving in Congress, facing immediate ostracism, and enduring concerted efforts by her own party colleagues to marginalize or discredit her because of her unwavering alignment with MAGA's founding principles. She draws attention to prominent Republican figures like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, and Mark Levin, who openly or covertly oppose the movement Trump represents, despite publicly claiming loyalty to it. Greene suggests that many Republican leaders have long been captured by special interest donors, foreign lobbyists, and globalist agendas that directly contradict MAGA's America First stance. This betrayal includes complicity in facilitating endless foreign wars, refusing to secure the borders, and promoting globalization at the expense of American workers. Greene insists these politicians' opposition to Trump and his base stems from their unwillingness to relinquish power or reform the party in line with its voters' interests. Within this contentious arena, Both Tucker and Greene hold up certain lawmakers as embodiments of MAGA's true spirit. Marjorie Taylor Greene, through her consistent voting record and vocal advocacy, is portrayed as one of the few in Washington who has not compromised. She speaks candidly about the political attacks she faces, including smear campaigns, social media harassment, and attempts by insiders to undermine her influence within the movement. Another key figure she highlights is Representative Thomas Massie, known for principled stands such as demanding recorded votes on massive spending bills and pushing back against pandemic-related lockdown measures. Massie is described as one of the most consistent allies to Trump's agenda in Congress. Greene recounts his efforts to negotiate meaningful budget cuts and keep government accountability intact, contrasting his integrity with the behavior of establishment politicians. Despite the personal tensions between Massie and Trump, Greene envisions their coming together as a potentially unstoppable force that could realign the Republican Party with MAGA's foundational values. Nevertheless, both politicians face growing opposition from party operatives and special interests who seek to replace them with more compliant figures. An important and controversial theme in the discussion is the role of foreign influence, particularly the Israel lobby, in shaping U.S. politics and its alleged impact on MAGA's direction. Greene articulates a sharp critique of the bipartisan consensus to provide unconditional aid and military support to Israel, framing it as a betrayal of American taxpayers and sovereignty. She recounts personal experiences of being targeted for her opposition to this foreign entanglement and highlights how efforts to challenge pro-Israel policies have brought about fierce backlash within the GOP establishment. The conversation carefully differentiates between criticism of foreign governments and anti-Semitism, emphasizing the distinction between Jewish people and Israeli government policy. Both Tucker and Greene express concern over Christian Zionist leaders who advocate absolute loyalty to Israel at the expense of American interests, calling such positions heresy. This issue, for them, exemplifies the broader struggle between allegiance to foreign powers and America First principles, a tension at the heart of the establishment's resistance to MAGA's agenda. Toward the conclusion, Greene warns that the Republican Party is at a critical crossroads. She critiques current Republican leaders for their inaction, political drama, and willingness to sacrifice MAGA principles for the sake of power and donor interests. The party risks alienating its base if it continues to embrace globalist policies, foreign wars, and cultural censorship. She calls for grassroots vigilance and electoral accountability, emphasizing that if billionaire donors and foreign lobbies succeed in buying congressional seats and redirecting party priorities, the country's sovereignty and democratic legitimacy will be fundamentally jeopardized. Greene expresses hope, however, that voters remain awake and eager to hold their representatives accountable, underscoring the importance of primaries and local activism to preserve MAGA's legacy. Ultimately, Greene urges Republicans and conservatives to get back in the game seriously and deliver on campaign promises, warning that failure to do so may lead to widespread voter disillusionment and political decay.